Howdy, on this month's Everyday Asphalt, we've got TJ Young in the house, and we're talking about asphalt plants. We're going to go a little bit about his history and his background. We're going to talk about the evolution of asphalt plants. We're going to talk about who needs to be at an asphalt plant and how it runs. We're going to talk about plant operations. We're going to talk about the coordination and the cooperation of people that are involved in it. And at the end, stay tuned for a quick fire effort where we're going to go through and he's going to give us tips and tricks on different aspects of the asphalt plant. Stay tuned. It's going to be a great show. Hey, welcome everybody to Everyday Asphalt. My name is Jim Warren. I'd like to welcome everybody here today. The purpose of this program is to go a little bit deeper in the areas of materials, design, construction, and maintenance. That's the purpose of the program. We broadcast this program obviously on the third Thursday of every month, but then we also put it on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, type in Texas Asphalt Pavement Association or TexAPA. Like, subscribe, and share so you'll be notified of future programs as they get dropped. We also put this on Audible or on Spotify and on the Apple Podcast. We strip out the video and put it up there for your driving pleasure. So that's how we roll. So welcome everybody. Our guest today is TJ Young with Tasco. He also works for Duval Asphalt in Jacksonville, Florida. Buddy.
Hey man.
Welcome.
It's good to see you again.
Welcome. TJ's in town. He's going to be teaching our plant operators workshop this week, and so we're just thrilled to death to have you here. And
I'm glad to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Exciting. Y'all don't know, but we go way back. Like 3 decades plus, I think now.
We can't remember.
Yeah, we can't remember how far back, but
our whole careers.
Our whole careers, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
when you were in an apartment in Columbia, Maryland.
Yeah. Yeah.
At dinner, your wife was very nice that night.
Well, that's cool. Wow, that's a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. So, for those of you who don't know, again, we've known each other a long time. We work with each other. TJ is a plant guy. That's his deal, and he knows them inside and out. But I want you to walk through a little bit of kind of where you started, briefly, so people get a feeling of your breadth and depth of your level.
Okay. Well, needed a job out of graduate school, and the situation is it came down to in the middle of a recession.
Yep.
Got to have a job.
Yep.
And I promised my wife if she'd marry me, we'd live in Kansas City. So Kansas City had an asphalt plant manufacturer. They run an ad, right?
Okay.
My dad is in Dallas running a company.
Okay.
He goes, "Why are you taking that?" And I said, "Have you ever seen a road removed?" So I figure the industry is always going to be here. We don't have to worry about that.
Yep.
I need to learn something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up with Standard Havens, which was a plant manufacturer in Kansas City. And I say, okay, what do you know about asphalt? Zero, which I suppose kind of set the tone for me for my career. Because what we'll be talking about here today, it's like what we learn from what works on the street and what doesn't work on the street.
Sure.
I don't know anything about making asphalt. I don't know anything about asphalt plants, silos, cold feed, volumetric control, meter feedback control, linearity, none of this stuff. And I'm like, give me a book. And there was not a book. So the Asphalt Institute had a little binder. I kept it, 11 pages on how a plant works. And I'm like, this isn't working. So it becomes a matter of getting with the people and having a lot of experience. They're at Standard Havens. They threatened to fire me if I wasn't in the field. They're like, did you get a travel bag? Did you get a credit card? Yeah. If you're caught in the office very much, you're fired. Because the real world's out there. Go figure out what works. Go figure out what contractors need. Figure out design changes we need to make. And if you think about rollers, compactors, and everything, we've been in an evolution of design.
Yeah, and we want to talk about that.
Yeah, and I don't know, so I'm like, I've got to learn.
Sure.
And if we have this, the people that are managing right now, you call them up on the phone right now, and they're going to say, one of my standard phrases is, at 45 years in the business, I'm tired of learning something new every day. There is something new to learn every day as we change mixed design techniques, we move on this path of perfection.
Yeah.
That we're trying, in the industry.
Yep.
And as we go along, we learn things. Or as Greg Reniger at Aztec says, sometimes you design something and you've got it figured out and it doesn't work the way you think it was.
No.
And sometimes you're like, this shouldn't work, but it really does.
So let's
And
figure
we're
out how that
adding
works,
to that
yeah.
empirical knowledge. So
Gotcha.
that's kind of my background. So
So
I was
we're
there.
from Standard Havens, you were there.
And then we left. We sold the company. We right at the juncture where we were instrumental in designing the counterflow drum
Right.
technology.
Right.
And we left to build a plant, which was actually a business plan that I floated at Standard Havens. Not everybody needs to buy a whole plant. They might need
Pieces.
new drum baghouse combo,
baghouse, burner,
silos,
silo,
whatever. You
hot
know,
oil
it's
heater.
like this equipment is very expensive, and that's kind of key to what we're talking about here. Kind of key for the industry we live in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Technology has moved a lot, but it hasn't moved very much in the last 20 years, interestingly.
Okay.
So, you know, we can talk about that a little bit, but we left and started a company to build half plants,
Right.
right?
Right.
The company didn't see the benefit of that. Another Kansas City company, Allied Signal, the young guys are like, we got this idea now that we have GPS. There's a bigger market than the machines we're building just for the military. It's like every sportsman ought to have one.
Okay.
Kansas City company.
Oh,
They
okay.
said, oh, go back to work. It's not a good idea.
Gotcha.
They left and formed a company called Garmin. I'm sure you've heard of that.
No kidding.
Yeah. So we
Wow.
left, head of engineering,
Okay.
top sales guy. I was a product development guy. And we started a company building custom equipment.
Mhm.
I got burned out in the business
Yep.
and got recruited to work as a regional manager for a recycling aggregate company.
I remember
That
that.
was kind of
That
pivotal.
was in Kansas City too.
And that was in Kansas City, so I was a regional manager, so we were making sized spec grade aggregate out of recycled concrete. Same thing with asphalt,
Right.
you know, fractionating, doing
Yeah.
all sorts of things.
Yep.
And so that was good for my career.
Sure.
And while I was there, I get phone calls, which led to Tasco.
Okay.
So they're like, hey, now that you don't sell equipment, and
Can you help me out?
can you take a few days off?
And come
That
up-
company was very generous to me,
Yep.
allowing me, as long as my operation was running smoothly, I could go. So I think the first call came from Oldcastle, and Jimmy called me and said, I need you in New York, and can you come up here for a week? So now we're looking through equipment, what's wrong with it, what's right with it, what we're going to be talking about here.
Mhm.
There's 3 levels of knowledge. How's the equipment work? Do you know how to run it right? And how do you maintain it? Because any machine's going to wear out.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter what it is in our industry,
Yep.
even lab equipment. And so people just started calling, and the next thing you know, I've got a consulting company for 25 years.
Yeah.
How I ended up at Duval Asphalt, they wanted to retool that. Paul Jurgensen owns that firm.
Yep.
And the Jurgensen
Good guy.
family has about 40 plants in Kentucky
Yep.
and Ohio. They're pretty
Mhm.
well known. And Paul's like, look, this recession's on. We need to retool the company. We need to go higher percentage of wrap. We need to improve quality control. I had written a Plant 2 course for.
Yep.
So I kind of ended up there, and they won't let me leave. so that was 12 years ago. So
Is it 12 now?
12 years. It's
Wow.
unbelievable. So
Wow.
we're walking this fine line of me helping build that team, working with ATS, working with Steve, who came in after me,
Right.
and Tanya,
Yep.
and the binder lab, and everything that's
Yep.
that Paul is really funding there
Right.
in separate firms,
Right.
just because we love asphalt, right?
There you go.
And they let me leave and still do
stuff
consulting
like
work.
this.
So, you know, I kind of have a passion for education because I had none.
Right.
And I started with none. And
Right.
if we're going to recruit people in, what do we need to know in this business? How do you push the buttons right? What do you need to watch out for? You know,
There you go.
and you know that's what TechSAP is all about. NAP is all about, you know, and so we're
All
just
the other state
part of the team,
associations,
and
yep.
that's what you and I've been doing for
Long time.
decades.
Yeah, decades. Cool.
So that's a background. That's my background.
Awesome. Awesome. So, I guess it just a question in your consulting role. Do you ever figure out how many plants you've been in or worked or talked to? or
Yeah,
worked
I
in?
have actually. I've worked on a plant. Actually worked on a job on a plant in every single state and every single province in North America.
No kidding.
except for 2. Labrador and, ironically, Alaska.
No
Alaska
kidding.
is too far of a, and my daughter lives there.
Okay.
So she's like, Dad, when are you going to come up here? They're not paving the road right. And usually what happens is I have a lot of clients that have plants in Alaska, but they're like, dang, it's an airplane ticket to drop a hat. It's $2,500. Well, let's just talk on the phone.
Sure.
Now, you know things are working when you can talk to people on the phone. And what I want to stress is, like, I'm not that smart. I want to believe I'm observant.
Sure.
And I really am not that smart. But when you've been to about 1,000 plants in North America,
No kidding.
out of the 3,600,
Wow.
and people will name a plant, and I'm like, yeah, you know, the one behind the Quick Trip, you know, and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's got the freaking 3 brands of silos on it. Yeah, that one.
That one.
Yeah, who's that guy still running that plant? So when you've been around and you've worked with guys and you've got problems, you learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just keep, well, maybe it's this, maybe
it's
it's that,
additive.
and maybe it's that. So I've been to an
Wow.
awful lot of plants, and a lot of the stuff we can do over the phone now. One of the things we're looking at, just an example, the last 3 years,
Mhm.
I'm going to burn up all your time. You
We're
know
good.
I'm good for that.
I know. This may be
So
may be a part 1 and part 2.
Might be. It really might be. But just as an example of this is, like, in the last 3 years, I haven't left the office in Jacksonville. But a guy will call me, I got a problem. Well, certain brands of equipment with certain types of batchers
Have certain
certain
characteristics.
kinds of problems,
Sure.
because frequently with the SMA mixes and the open graded friction course mixes we run now, there are a lot of stone in them.
Right.
You build a 300 ton an hour plant, you want to make damn sure that the slack conveyor runs 350 ton an hour or 4, because on a dry day, a 300 ton an hour plant, every 1% moisture is 10% production, 13% production,
Right.
10% fuel. You know, we put in the Napa stuff,
Mhm.
you and I, and you know, that plant can run 350, 375 ton an hour. So he's running at 200 ton an hour. His slat is going 350 ton an hour. Luckily, now we have VFDs, right? Throws the rock discharges to the far side into the batcher. And depending on which way the truck's pulling in, your gradation on one side of the truck's going to be different than the other.
Wow.
And they call up usually with an asphalt content problem.
Okay.
Asphalt and gradation kind of follow each other.
Sure.
So it's
Absolutely.
like, dude, what kind of equipment do you have? Blah, blah. Is it configured like this? Go check this.
This is
And just slow it down. Put a VFD on it,
Okay.
change the belts out, slow it down, get your quality back up. You can do that on the phone, so I haven't been to Alaska.
okay.
So,
Not
so I
yet.
get 3 or 4
Not yet.
phone calls. And so this is what encourages us, which is why I'm a big believer in the training stuff for the
Mhm.
crew guys, which
Yep.
we're doing here.
Good.
And you guys are doing, because once you get these things kind of under belt, it's a new idea. You wouldn't think of it on your own.
Gotcha.
And once you hear it, you go, boom, maybe that's what I got. Boom, problem solved.
Gotcha.
So that's
So, walk me through. You mentioned this just a couple minutes ago. It's about what's happened with plants, but you said 45 years. So, what's changed in asphalt plants in the last 45 years? Obviously,
Can we move it to 50?
50.
Okay, 50 puts us squarely in 1974.
Gotcha.
Batch plants went away
Mm-hmm.
in the 70s because this whole idea of you don't need a batch tower to size the stone anymore. Because 3 things happened in the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
Number 1, we could get sized aggregate
Okay.
from quarries.
Okay.
Okay?
Huge.
This is not 1916 Warren Brothers patent where
Okay.
you make crusher run and you dry it through a dryer, and you size
separate
it
it all
into
out.
3 or 4 different sizes
And then put it back
and
together.
put it back together.
Okay.
Because in the end, asphalt is just controlling gradation, stone sizes, asphalt content, and additives, right?
Sure.
That's it.
Yep.
So we had sized aggregates. Why do we need a batch tower?
Yep. There's one.
Belt scales were invented for the grain industry. So now
Oh.
you can measure material going into a ship
Okay.
with a belt scale
Okay.
continuously.
Well, there we go.
Okay, so
Yeah.
now we got a weight of aggregate. Okay,
Okay.
variable speed motors like your Lionel train set, if you're as old
Oh,
as
yeah.
me.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
a little DC motor.
Yep, yep.
Variable speed motors became very inexpensive, and today we use VFDs, variable frequency drives,
Right.
and you literally can buy one for like $1,000
Okay.
and put it on a regular 5 horsepower motor, and it turns a belt conveyor into a variable speed belt magically.
Wow.
So variable speed motors to control gradation, size rocks,
Right.
belt scales,
Okay.
and silos. So silos didn't show up on asphalt plants till the 60s.
Because everyone was batching. I remember you drive onto the batch tower and
Exactly.
you batch right
Exactly.
into the truck.
And 3 companies became very big just selling silos to batch plants.
Okay.
Chattanooga Boiler,
Okay.
which we know as Aztec
Okay.
today.
Okay.
CMI bought that company out,
Okay.
but Bruce Dillman was one of 3 brothers.
Yep.
He had the asphalt division.
Yep.
He started building silos in Marquette.
Okay.
Standard Havens was building silos and actually saw the idea on the West Coast. Contractors a lot of times invent the idea, and then people come in and mass market.
Yeah.
You know, they go, oh, we could sell those things, work a deal with it. And that's kind of what happened there.
Okay.
So silos are very prevalent. So then the light bulb comes off. What do we need a batch tower with a pug mill with tips and gates and screens and all that
additional
stuff is
moving
going to wear
equipment.
out and
Right.
it's very expensive. And ironically, once you have one dryer that dries and heats and then you mix in one foul swoop and then put it in a silo, that dramatically changed the industry.
Okay.
So today, the continuous mix plants that we have in North America, which we call drum mixers, which
Okay.
is a term we invented,
Right.
constitute probably over 95% of all the owner agency work.
Okay.
And that's what everybody buys. And in 50 years, the entire industry probably went from 5,000, 6,000 plants down to what we think is 3,600 plants.
Okay.
And they're all virtually drum mixer type plants
Okay.
of one flavor or the other. That's a massive change if
Sure.
you look at it in the lens of history.
Okay. Okay. That is a big one.
And
So-
then on the paving side is
Yeah.
a plant
Oh, yeah.
similar,
Oh.
but
Yeah.
I mean, Aztec, we call them shuttle buggies, but there's a generic
Material
term for that.
transfer
There you go,
vehicle,
help me
yeah.
out. Material
MTVs,
that
yeah.
was a big thing
That was
because
huge.
for smoothness,
Yeah,
right?
that was huge.
Smoothness density.
Milling
there's
machines.
milling machines
Yeah.
which
Created wrap.
I met the guy that kind of invented that whole idea
Okay.
up in Wisconsin, a
Yeah.
contractor. He
Yeah.
was interesting character. They put a milling head in there. Ironically, Galleon put the first milling head into a motor grader, and they never
Okay.
ended up capitalizing on the market.
Okay.
Preston left with Barbara Green and helped him develop that one. But there's been some technology shifts. But on the plant side, computer control, now that we have massive capabilities of computer control, audio feedback telling you got no flow on feeder number 3, you know,
To talk to you.
talks to you, you know, diagnostic data. We can go in and look at data in a plant and see what all the flow characteristics were for the last, 24 hours of run.
Wow. Okay.
And a lot of people don't know that exists.
Okay.
And it exists on every brand of automation.
Okay.
So there's been a massive, massive change.
Okay.
We went from propellers to jets, basically.
So what's a typical asphalt plant that would be sold today? What does that look like? How many bins? How many?
Yeah, I did a couple
silos?
coaching jobs
Yeah.
last year on guys like, we need to buy a new plant. And basically, you got to have 5 cold feed bins
Okay.
because you're going to have a natural sand and a manufactured sand,
Right.
whatever you want to call it,
Right.
stone screening, stone dust, whatever.
Right.
You're going to control your voids with that natural sand because you can really, because voids are king, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you've got 3 different sizes of rocks,
Okay.
and you got to have a wrap bin,
Okay.
because everybody's running recycle. So we got to have 5 cold feed bins. You've got to have at least 1 wrap
Right.
bin. If you're in a city, if you're not a portable plant, if you're in a city, you really need 3 silos.
Okay.
2 silos is difficult because a plant, which is what we're going to be talking about here in this session, the next 2 days, is the plant can make mix for 4 or 5 crews.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a batch tower. And silos allow a 400 ton an hour plant that runs 400 ton an hour for 10 hours, 4,000 tons of mix.
Making the same mix.
Making the same mix.
Right.
But if you got 2 jobs, you might need 2 mixes.
There you
and
go.
then you got people that are going to do a parking lot.
They want something else.
Because the business is somewhat fractionalized, right?
Right.
From a marketing standpoint, you've got the little guys doing the little jobs who, don't have that much volume. But big guys are big companies are hard to compete with mom and pop driveway, right? Or patching up 7-Eleven or whatever.
Right.
So those guys are always going to want a top or a surface course mix or a top mix or whatever you want to call it, whatever part of the country you're in. You really need 3 silos. With 3 silos, you can do what I say is a lot of damage. I mean, you can really manage your production and your crews and really get a lot done.
Okay.
So when guys say I need to buy a plant, I'm like, if you're in a city, you better buy 3. You better have 3.
Okay.
Small city, you might be able to live with 2, but because we don't have that batch tower anymore. And then you want to have a filler additive silo if you're going to run SMA. Need a little more. You're going to put lime in for strip control, whatever. You really ought to have a mineral filler silo, and you really ought to have a metered feedback. So you ought to be putting it in by weight, because you got your belt scales, you get your weigh scale, and of course, asphalt tanks. You can't live without 2 different kinds of asphalt. You're going to need asphalt, polymerized asphalt.
A lot of our guys have got 3.
3 is really. I mean, I've been begging for a 4th.
Oh, okay.
Because we go to high poly. Which is a lot of
Whole
states
nother
are working on.
Yeah.
We're going to end up with a high poly, asphalt tank.
Yeah.
And so really, you've got to have at least 2 asphalt tanks, possibly 3. Even on a portable plant.
Yeah.
You're going to have a split tank, and you see a lot of portable plants going out with 2 asphalt tanks.
Okay.
Now.
Wow. Okay.
And if you're going to fractionate your wrap, you might have 2 wrap bins, but your minimum is 5.
Okay.
3 in the city, 2 asphalt tanks, 1 wrap, minimum, 1 filler silo. You can always move a fiber machine or a pellet machine, from plant to plant to plant, which a lot of us do. But that's your minimum.
Okay.
And it's going to cost you $5 to $6 million minimum.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not including your land, not including.
Yeah, it's a major economic barrier to entry. It's gotten very expensive.
That's a big one. Okay.
And so that's one reason why I want to focus on maintenance.
Sure. It's a huge,
now, ironically, things haven't changed a lot in 20 years. So you asked 40 years?
Yeah.
50 years ago, massive switch. 20 years ago, pretty much steady running.
Okay.
And now it's an argument about how much wrap we're going to run. Are we going to fraction it or not?
Okay.
How many wrap bins do we need?
We're tweaking.
Right. How many more asphalt tanks we need?
We're tweaking.
How many wrap bins do we
Depending
need?
on
Do we need to have 2
where
fillers?
I'm at, what I'm doing, what my mix is.
Yeah, if you want to control your bagasse dust back to control your voids, and you also got to add lime, you might have 2 filler silos. So we're tweaking the equipment. 40 years ago, we had plants that were push button start. You programmed everything, it talked to you, it's hands off. And it was scary, so we kind of took the autopilot out of the automation.
Okay.
So we're tweaking the last 20 years.
Cool.
Hope that helps.
What's the biggest plant you've seen in the U.S.?
The biggest one, I think, in the U.S. right now is probably 10 300-ton silos in a 650 ton an hour capability with 3 recycle bins.
Where is that?
Orlando.
Is that Middlesex?
Middlesex's plant is probably the biggest plant.
Huge.
There are a lot of 9 silo plants,
Okay.
3 silos over 3 scales, and in that 500 to 600 ton an hour range. But 10 300 ton, I'm like, what do you? They run 24 hours a day. They do probably pretty much 1 million tons out of that one plant.
Easy.
And that's big. Now, Michigan has big plants.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Michigan has big plants because, and I've never understood it, but I'm talking to the Ajax people.
Mm-hmm.
Fred's like, yeah, you figured it out. It's like you can move mix so quickly in Michigan with those
50-ton trucks.
Yeah.
50-ton net capacity trucks.
Yeah, some are 60 now.
Oh, what?
And they have 13 axles, right? And so it's load distribution.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the freeways work pretty good there.
Yeah.
And so when there's a big job let, there's a lot of 800, 700, 800 ton an hour plants up there.
No kidding.
Yeah. And they rarely run that.
Yeah.
But if there's
they
a
can.
big job,
But they can.
because it's all about being a low cost producer, right?
Yeah.
So if you can put your, get your wings out on your paver, and they're up north, they put in thicker lifts.
Yeah,
And
you can go.
5,000 ton day is not
Out of bounds.
out of reason.
Wow.
So Michigan's got some big honkers too, and usually one of the big cities has got a massive plant. Like if you go to Los Angeles or
Yeah.
Seattle, you're going to find a big honker.
Okay. Interesting. So we're talking about plants. So what can a plant what things in a plant can control? Because I think a lot of people have this, maybe a misnomer. We're talking about volumetrics or I need to adjust the air void. So go to the plant tower and go to the air void
button
and adjust it.
No.
So what can a plant?
All a plant is a mixing machine. As Wayne Martin used to say, I don't need to know how to design asphalt. All I need to know is what size rocks you want,
Okay.
what size liquids you want, what additives you want. I'll take care of it, right?
Okay.
So the training analogy that I always give my people is that the plant is like the kitchen in a restaurant.
Okay.
Right? We don't design the recipe. We just cook it.
Okay.
So however that
You're just putting
design
it
comes
together.
to us, FAA, whatever, balanced mix design, whatever, it's always going to come down to rocks, liquid, and additives, right?
Just
And
like you're talking about the plant, right? I've got
That's it.
cold feed bins,
That's
I've
it.
got liquid tanks,
That's
and I've
it.
got additives,
That's
additive silos or
That's
blowers or stuff.
That's it. Now, voids are an interesting conversation because gradation's going to move voids,
Mm-hmm.
and asphalt content's going to move voids, and how you manage your baghouse dust back or don't is going to affect your voids.
Yeah.
So these are the responsibility of the plant, and that's where we get into best practice, right? But
Gotcha.
at the end of the day, it's like, what do you
Gotcha.
want made?
Okay.
We've done some mixes for a railroad in Florida, and they have their own mix design. We look at it and go, okay.
You really want
I
this?
mean, it's like if that's what you want, and we've worked with them to tweak their designs
Mhm.
because it's like, look, I think if we do this, it'd be better. But what are we doing? We're controlling rock sizes, dust, asphalt, additive, and
Right.
that's what we do.
Okay.
And
So,
it's
We-
really
and we were-
important that you work together.
yeah, and we were talking about this earlier before we got started, but just, what level of effort and who all has to be involved in this? Because it's more than just a plant operator.
Everybody. What we've been working on in our career, you
Mhm.
and I, and
Yep.
we're better than we were.
Yeah.
Is the QC and plant team, the design team. So you got your design team, you've got your verification team,
Right.
that are checking your mix after
Right.
the fact, right?
Right.
And you got your plant guys in the middle, and cross training those people so they understand each other's language.
I think that's really key.
It's key, and we're better than we were 30 years ago, but we still got a long ways to go.
Agreed.
Our
Agreed.
guys, we have a feed. I can get my phone out here and I can show you all the feed of other process control samples and the paste samples that have been feeding through today. And
So
other companies do the same thing.
you can monitor that.
Everybody sees it.
Okay.
Plant guys see it.
Oh, okay.
QC people see it. It's one of the things we put in at Duval. Steve is with ATS is at South Carolina this week. I'm
Yep.
here.
Yep.
He's at the South Carolina Asphalt Paving Association talking about best practices. I think that's a key thing. I like to take the QC people, that particularly the newer ones, and let them help calibrate the plant.
Oh, sure.
So calibration checks,
makes
we've
perfect
discussed that for a
sense.
long time.
Yep.
You should check your calibrations every once in a
that
while
makes perfect sense.
and be proactive about things.
Yeah.
Bringing them up and let them sit in front of the screen, run the rocks, run the speeds of the feeders, put the data in the computer, see the graph on the screen.
Mhm.
That locks in their brain what's going on in this process. It's magic.
Okay.
The plant guys being in there, seeing the sieves being shaken, the burn off oven, learning it's not hard. Watch these sieve sizes,
Mm-hmm.
watch your asphalt content, watch your dust, and they begin to understand why voids are so critically important, particularly in Texas here, that really drives things.
Yeah.
And if our AC is high, our voids are going to collapse. Our grades go coarse, our voids are going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
They fine up, they're going to go up.
Yeah.
And they begin to understand that relationship. So if you see a plugged feeder, the plant guys now are like, okay, we're going to have a void problem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've been on jobs
they're
where
connecting the dots.
no, I've been on jobs where I've been called in and they're like, don't go to the plant, come to the road. Literally, they had me on my hands and knees looking at circles on the pavement.
Okay.
There's a problem here.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
not the paving guys.
Okay.
You can see the texture difference in the mat. There's
wow.
a plant issue.
Okay.
Then I go back to the plant.
Okay.
And the plant guys begin to understand that it's not just your pay once every 1,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like every single foot of that road's going to be looked at
Yeah. Yeah.
by the riding public, if
Yeah.
nothing else.
For the next 20 years.
And voids are
Yeah.
critical. We've
Yeah.
learned that voids, are we continuing to tweak our approach to design? Yes. But it's those plant guys' responsibility to hold those rocks consistent, hold the liquid consistent, make sure the material's dried and heated within, and in the truck within a 10-degree window, which is doable,
Okay.
no matter what anybody tells you.
Okay.
Which is a problem we have in our industry because we have a temperature band that's maybe 30 or 40 degrees on a mix. It's just like rock gradations. I mean, we got a master band we can move inside of, but we want to see rocks coming from the quarry a certain percent passing 3/8, for instance, on that rock, right? You want consistency. Temperature's the same way.
Sure.
To get field density, we've got to get temperature, and we got to get it in the truck without segregating it. So really, the plant guy's job is just responsibility of the gradations, getting the dust back in that we collect and get it back and not screw that up, right?
Right.
And that's a gradation thing. Asphalt content, control temperature within 10 degrees, and get it in the truck without segregating it. Then pray that everybody knows how to pave it, But if you give a beautiful paving crew a bad mix, you're not going to have a good job.
Right. It's from beginning to end.
But conversely, you can start with beautiful aggregate, beautiful binder, everything. Your plant can all be calibrated, and you still make bad mix. Because it's how you fly the plane, how
Okay.
you control.
Okay.
You're at the console, so
Okay.
the foreman is the key guy.
Okay. Okay. But I imagine it even a loader guy, right?
Everybody has a part to play.
Yeah.
Everybody has
Yeah.
a part to play, which is what we're going to be talking about. You've
Okay.
got a lot of people ask me how many people does it take to run a plant, which is why I have a heartburn on this metric of labor cost per ton.
Oh, okay.
It's
Sure.
ridiculous
Yeah.
metric. You need a guy in the loader, you need a guy in the console, and you need a guy on the ground watching the plant. Because if
Okay.
the plant starts doing weird stuff, it's possibly going to manifest itself into either a breakdown or a mixed quality issue, like my famous dead raccoon story, where a dead raccoon got in a feed bin, plugged off half of the feeder, the no-flow switch is still working.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we're not getting a no-flow.
Okay.
But it's
you're
like,
getting half flow.
but our target to actual on the screen is reduced. We're like, what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's where this all comes together. The guy on the ground, I'm with the guy on the ground. And I'm like, holy crap, there's something in the feed bin. It was a dead raccoon. You got in never made it to the scalping screen to get kicked out, right?
You get stuck.
But it's affecting the gradation of the mix.
Sure.
And we're on the radio immediately, go to another silo. That's where 3 silos come in handy.
Okay.
Just put it over there because we have got a gradation issue, we've got bad mix.
Okay.
The field guys would see it, right? The guy on the ground is critical. 3 guys, 100 ton an hour plant, 3 guys. 400 ton an hour plant, 3 guys. 500 ton an hour plant, 3 guys.
Okay.
3 guys,
Okay.
and they all have to work as a team.
And we're communicating.
That's right.
We're
So we got best practice,
Yep.
which is what we're doing this week.
Yep.
Best practices for the guy on the ground.
Yep.
Best practice for the guy in the loader.
Perfect.
Best practice for the guy on the console.
Perfect. Perfect. So, you covered my stuff, but that's fine. I mean, this is good.
Sorry, I
so
screwed up your schedule.
No, it's fine. I mean,
Oh God.
I always love talking to you because I never know where it's going to go, and It always ends up in a pretty
I don't
cool.
know if that's a good thing or a
No,
bad
it always
thing.
ends up in a good place. I always learn stuff. I think the one thing I remember you telling me years and years ago, and you're teaching at some seminar, or that maybe one of the ones we were running, and he goes, you would always say things cry before they die.
Yeah,
Equipment.
exactly.
And I've noticed that on my old truck, which I still have. My steering pump is going out, and
Yeah.
it cries like a
Yeah.
baby in the
Heavy
morning.
equipment complains a lot before it dies.
Yeah, but if you don't have
Cries
somebody
before it
out
dies.
there
Right.
looking at it or
It's
hearing
going.
it, something's wrong.
Something's
Yeah,
wrong.
Something's wrong.
Yeah.
And so the way for the last 12 years, the way your company's set up, and you mentioned it earlier with Paul, you got ATS, which is
Right.
basically a testing lab,
It's a separate company.
separate company, but that's your QC lab.
We
and your design
we
lab.
pay ATS
Yeah.
to do our
And
design work, and we pay them to do our verification
Okay.
testing.
So, there are some companies that do that.
Yeah.
There are a number of companies in
Yeah.
Florida do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And there's some other companies around us do that because there's ways of it's a lot of capital to have a really good lab.
Well, and we have a binder lab,
Yeah.
and we have a performance mix design
Yeah.
lab, even though we're in a state that doesn't really deal with performance or
And
BMD.
you're probably one of the few labs in the country who's got that.
Because, well, here's a great story on that.
Yeah.
We ran out of rock with the COVID thing, the whole thing, and the railroads,
Yeah.
and the whole thing.
Yeah.
So two of our competitors, okay, just a shout out. I wanted to get this story in a magazine.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the story.
All right.
So we're using a high polymer virgin mix test
Excuse me.
strip for Florida DOT, and we have half the job, and our competitor has half the job.
Okay.
So we usually have about 80,000 tons. So it's
Okay.
about 160,000 tons on a logging road, because it's a slash pine industry in the
Yep.
southeast.
A lot of
And that's where longevity comes from, interestingly, is what's left over out of the
kind of like
trees.
East Texas here. Heavy logging.
Yeah. And they built this haul road that's been there since the 1890s through swamp, basically,
Mhm.
right? Lowland.
Yep.
And so they're going for a research project, ground up, build it again,
Okay.
all right? High poly, no wrap. We'll try some things. Basically, a very coarse mixed design.
Mm-hmm.
And we're competing with each other. We're all using the same granite out of Georgia. Can't
Okay.
get it by rail.
Okay.
At the port, there's material from Nova Scotia sitting on the wharf wall,
Right.
right? Granite.
Right.
Not the same granite.
No.
Got to
It's
do a new Nix design.
Right.
We were able to fast track. The job shut down for both of us because we're both using the same aggregates.
And for the Florida, the last couple of years had a huge aggregate issue.
Oh yeah,
I
massive.
mean, huge.
Yeah.
And okay,
It's
so
all a transportation
Yeah.
issue, and
Yeah.
people were scared to death about So there's no rock left in Florida. It's just a peninsula,
Right.
right? This part of the world, you have a lot of aggregate. But what's going to become commonplace, because nobody wants to have a quarry in their backyard, nobody wants to have a concrete plant in their backyard, nobody wants to have a police station in their backyard,
Right.
right? So it's like we're moving rock a long distance.
Mm-hmm.
And the Florida DOT that doesn't use balanced mixed design as a design system now,
Right.
right?
Yep.
They're
Yep.
looking at it
Yeah.
going, I
Yeah.
don't know, what we do is fine, right? So
Yep.
whatever state you're in is right, and the other 49 are learning, right? And
Pretty much.
one of the jokes that
Yeah, pretty much.
I know it's not a politically correct thing to say, but we learn from each other.
Sure.
But we had to shut the job down, and we're just sitting because we can't get the rock, but there's buku rock. By using ATS's balanced mix design lab, we were able to fast track that rock for both us and our competitor
Okay.
in less than 4 weeks to
And
get
get
it
the job-
approved.
and
Because
get the
like,
job
look,
up and
it's
running
going to
again.
be okay
Yeah.
because we were able to design with our regular criteria, run it through our crack test, rut testing equipment, and go, here's all the data. What do you want to do? And it's like, yeah, let's keep building roads. And so we both finished that project with a different stone.
Awesome.
And so that's where that. So I personally believe that those tools are, regardless of what mixed design system you're going to use in the United States and in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to be adding those tests and go,
Absolutely.
we're very comfortable with this gradation, asphalt content, dust content.
Gotcha.
And that's changed the last 50
yeah,
years.
absolutely. So, I mean, you've kind of went through kind of what happens at the asphalt plant and how you guys are interacting with each other.
The interaction is key.
And I
It's
think
critical.
there's the opportunity, I think, for
Yeah.
a lot of us to,
Yeah.
if you're not doing that,
Yeah.
and I think the cross training, I think, is really a
It
key
helps.
thing.
Honestly, it's like I think what's going to come out here is what I'm learning the last 12 years, seeing what works and what doesn't work. Again, I'm just an observer, right? And it's like when people just work next to each other, they begin to understand each other's perspective.
Sure.
And when they learn a little bit, here, you drive the paver.
Okay.
Try to hold this in a straight line. You know?
Not as easy as you thought it was.
Yeah. I mean, you've heard me say this a million times. You give me $1 million to lay a smooth mat from here to the end of the parking lot, I'll never collect the money. I can't, I've not. But just being there, understanding the issue, we learn from each other. It's that communication. Once you understand, all those three things got to come together, and the plant has to produce, good mix.
Mm-hmm.
And we can have checklists. Like when segregation occurs, we now know statistically if it's a plant issue,
Okay.
where probably to look. If it's a paving issue, we know where to look. And when we communicate that stuff, now we're working together. And I just hate it. When the foreman calls up from the field, I will reprimand an operator. It's not going to be a pleasant conversation. If they call up and say this mix looks different, you don't blow that off.
Mm-hmm.
He's laying it.
Every day.
And it's like, what are you seeing?
Yeah.
And if we have enough staff, so here's a shout out for more people.
Okay.
If we can get more people on our staffs, we can dispense a guy. And when you just show up at the paver as a plant guy, it's huge.
Oh, I bet a lot of them.
And I'll say, send me some mix back, or if you get a chunk, we know where chunks come from.
Mm-hmm.
And we take that seriously. We respect each other. And if you just cross-train like that, it seems to help that communication. But the plant guys need to see the test data.
Okay.
And that becomes magic.
So
because
you're on like a group chat sort of
we got a
deal?
group chat.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I mean, you can't sleep at night. It's like every single mix,
Ding.
and people that make high quality mix. Here's a shout out for all your producers, and many of your producers are top drawer.
Mm-hmm.
They will test even private mixes. Okay, so that's another thing you see around the country. We'll be talking about today. People that make really, really good mixes and their plants are really, really good. Oh, your plants are. No, what they're doing is they are working with QC to test all the mixes they make every single day, even if it's a driveway mix.
They have an SOP. It's their SOP.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether we're doing a driveway mix
That's
or
right.
interstate. We do the same thing.
And when those guys are talking to each other,
Okay.
and the plant guy, lab can call up and go, you might look at your bag house return screw or whatever. It's like the dust just dropped or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. So they start talking to each other and they're helping each other.
Okay.
That's
Cool.
huge.
All right. Okay. We're gonna do we're trying something different. Rapid fire. I'm gonna give me one tip on aggregate handling that I need to.
Know what you're putting in the plant before you put it in.
Okay. Good. Binder handling on binders.
Monitor the temperature of the binder. Oh, one tip for binder handling. Okay. Do you have one for calibration? Okay. Calibrate the binder. Verify your calibration and plan for the binder for every binder you run at the temperature you run.
Okay. There you go.
That is key, and
Okay.
that hasn't spread around the country enough yet.
Okay.
Because a high polymer binder might flow through the meter system
Way
a little different than the other, and it's supposed to count. Well, verify that it does, because sometimes you find it doesn't.
Gotcha.
And then it's like, okay, but now you know that you got to treat that one a little different.
Tip on startup.
Control your temperature.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Learn how to control your temperature. Like I usually put money when I'm doing a plant audit on the console. You want to minimize your waste on startup.
Right.
The way you do that is controlling that drying kiln. The computer doesn't do that.
Okay.
You do that. You're the pilot.
Okay.
And control temperature. If you can control temperature, you can adjust the computer to control the other things, and you can have quality mix out of the box quicker, less waste.
Okay.
That leads to less cost, and it makes the guy proud of what he does.
Look at my waste pile. It's this big.
Yeah, when I drive in, that's the first thing I do.
Okay.
When I go into audit, I'm like, go look at their waste pile,
Okay.
and look how much on startup, and then I know if a guy really knows how to run the plant or not.
Okay. All right. Good deal. How about shutdown?
Shutdown. Same thing.
Okay.
Lose mix.
Okay.
Big rock goes through a drum faster than small rock on startup. That's why your mix looks coarser
Oh, okay.
on startup
Okay.
and black and shiny and looks good.
Okay.
You don't want to lay that mix.
Okay.
So you want that in a pit.
Okay.
Once that dryer gets equalized in airflow and material in it and resistance, because you got air moving, you got light rock drying and not wanting to get out in the tornado.
Mm-hmm.
The big rock's pushing behind. When you shut down, the same thing happens.
Okay.
So the big rock empties first.
Okay.
Fines come later. It's just
Okay.
so shutdown is lose the last little amount.
Okay.
We put a guy at the chute. He's got a gun. He's doing a visual. They're trained. And put it in the pit.
Okay.
You don't want to show up on the job because it might be a funny looking spot in a mat. No matter who you're paving for.
Got it. Store and mix.
Store and mix.
Yeah.
Storing one tip on storing mix. Okay. It's rapid fire.
Yeah.
If you've got a store mix, seriously consider filling your silo all the way up.
Okay. Okay.
That's the one tip, because if you get stuck with mix and you got half a silo, fill it up the rest of the way. More mass, less temperature loss. Okay. You won't have less likely to have a little crust on top.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
so be brave.
How about loadout from the silo?
One tip, multiple drops.
Okay. Always.
Always.
Yeah.
And this is something that everybody wants to argue about, and we'll be talking about it here in this session. But Texas is one of the states I've proved it in.
Yeah.
Even on a 12-5 mix.
Okay.
The multiple loadout, loading against a bulkhead, trying to get that last one. I call it socket load in the truck.
Sure.
That
Sure.
last load in the middle.
In the
Square
middle.
body trucks.
Right.
Even on 12-5 mixes, it will make a difference
Okay.
on gradation. So making those trucks move is critical, and that's the number one thing. And I get two on this one. Never, ever, ever load below the cone line. That's where the solid wall is straight, and then you got a cone. You got a Gencor 12'6" diameter silo on one generation. They have 36-inch opening. Okay, it's trying to get out. You load below that cone line, it's going to rat hole.
Okay.
When I showed up at Duval, I told everybody on the console, there's a line right here on the computer. If I ever walk in here and see that you're loading a truck below that line, that cone line, you're fired.
Wow.
Non-negotiable.
Okay. Wow.
Because you will have bony mix.
Okay.
So silos get two.
Okay. Quality control testing and control charts. You already said you guys are doing them. It's routinely, and everybody's getting a copy of them.
Everybody gets a copy. More testing. I am a testing fool.
Okay.
They hate me in the lab. I'm like, run another test.
Okay.
So you want as much data as you can, and don't make a change on one test.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
I say that too.
Wait for the trend. Be patient, right?
Yep.
And if you're scared, just pull another sample.
Okay.
Right away. Process control sample, whatever you want to call it, whatever state you're in. But hey, let's burn it and grade it. And I don't ever want to see a AC and a void without a grade behind it.
Okay. Do the whole thing.
Yeah, because you
need to
don't,
know. Which way do you go?
You don't know what went wrong.
Right.
When you look at the grades, you go, holy crap, right? I mean,
it substantiates. I
listen,
got to make a gradation change, or
I
I need
was
to make
running
an
a
asphalt.
loader one night, and Howie, we were there doing a 9.5 high poly 9.5 special bridge deck mix.
Okay.
We're only running the deck of a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I'm running the loader. Guess who puts the 1/2 inch in the 3/8 bin? Me, in the dark, right?
Yeah.
I don't do it that often.
Well,
Sometimes you accidentally.
stuff happens.
There's an old adage about sailors.
Okay.
There's those that have run aground, and those that are
That will.
liars.
Oh, those are.
And my superintendent over all the plants,
Yeah.
shout out to Irvin, the 3 plants that we're managing, he goes, there's 2 kinds of loader operators. Ones that have put the wrong rock in the bin at one point in their career, and liars.
Okay, so everybody does.
It may be that simple.
Yeah.
We're doing great. All of a sudden it goes off the rails. What happened when you have the data?
And it's 1 bucket of mix, or one bucket of rock, maybe.
Yeah, so it's like 10 tons, let's say.
And it's a rent, and then
But
it goes away.
if it's
Right.
20% of the feed, well, I can do the math
Yeah.
better. If it's 10% of the feed,
Yeah.
It's going to affect 100 tons of mix,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So, because it's not 100% of the mix,
Right.
and but if you're running an open grade, I mean, dude, think about it. If you put 3/8 in the 1/2 inch bin on an open grade, or 3/8 in the 3/4 bin if you're in Georgia, because they run a PFC that's 3/4 inch minus. Dude, it just screws you up so bad, it's unbelievable. Because it's kind of a 1 rock mix, right? So more data is better than less. Be patient, and be proactive about calibrating your plant,
Perfect.
and communicate with each other.
Okay. Good deal. Awesome. What's the hardest part of your job right now?
People.
Okay.
People. There's 2 things going on right now: is people and equipment. Okay. And I think all of your members are going to be seeing this heartburn. If they made it to the end of this video, they'll go, "Amen, he's right." It doesn't matter what brand of equipment, John Deere, Road Tech, Caterpillar. The stuff is so highly automated. It's almost like we need to have extra equipment, extra rollers, extra pavers, extra trucks, even. Okay, and it's so computerized that it's hard to diagnose things.
Okay.
This is not like the old days where it's spark, air, and you prime it, and jump it, and you get going. And so equipment, a lot of the electronic stuff has a tendency to fail. That's very frustrating. But people getting comfortable in their job and losing their culture of craftsmanship.
And we've had lots of conversations about that.
That's the most aggravating thing. People get comfortable in their job.
Yeah.
And the thing
And
is,
you lose focus.
I don't know what it is. Maybe it's focus, but think about you. Everybody watching this is gonna have this story. You're going along great. You're getting bonus. Everything is wonderful, wonderful. People have a tendency to get lax. It's a human nature thing,
Right.
and that's
Everything's
very
going
frustrated.
good. I can back off a little bit.
That yeah, exactly. Whether you're rolling, you're looting, you're raking, or you're running the plant, or you're feeding the rocks, whatever. Like the loader guy's got to work the whole face. He's got to work not the outside edges. They might be more segregated. You got to have a blend pile. They get lazy, and then it affects things, and it's people losing that culture of craftsmanship. The Gallup poll at the Napa meeting recently says that only 24.3% of the people are dedicated to their job. That means 3 out of 4 are kind of there for the paycheck, maybe.
Wow.
And maybe that's unfair and it's not really true.
Yeah.
But what we do know is people kind of get lazy. We had that issue last night. I saw it in test results. I talked to guys this morning, and it's just like people just not being fastidious about what they do. I talked to them about it's like a painter. Well, 1 or 2 runs, not a big deal, right? You can't have that. So as managers, we have to figure a way to keep them motivated.
Right.
That's a huge challenge. We can buy really kick butt equipment.
Okay.
People and equipment just laying down on you and you can't fix it.
I got it.
Those are 2 frustrations in the business right now.
We're out of time, but King for a day, you get to change anything. What is it and why?
I would have to go with, it's just what I'm living through right now. If everybody just really, really wanted to be the best they possibly could be at whatever they were doing in the business. If I could wave a magic wand, and make them just be the best looter, the best loader guy, the best plant ground guy, the best guy loading trucks. That's what I would do, and things would be. Then it would all be down to the mixed design guys.
Okay.
What design do we want to do next that's going to last another 5 years?
Okay.
Because we're making it right.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
That's it. Thanks.
Awesome. We forget to talk about anything? I know we could
No,
talk
we talk.
for
We
10 hours.
could talk forever, but
Yeah.
it's like
Any closing advice?
we're all in this together.
Okay.
You're always learning. Spend time with the other sides of the company
Good.
and
Yep.
learn from each other, because it really is a team.
Yep.
I mean, it's like we're sailing a ship. The engine room guys are not the only guys running the ship, right?
Gotcha.
So it's that cooperation. If we continue to cooperate with each other and continue to learn from each other, we build better roads than we did 4 years ago.
Yep.
There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely. I think
And they'll be even better yet.
All right.
Thanks.
Good deal. Thank you, man. Hey, well, that's all the time we've got for today. Remember, these are up on. This will be up on our YouTube site and also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Stay tuned. We'll be here next month with another adventure in Everyday Asphalt. In the meantime, stay safe out there and ever forward, everybody. Take care now.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.